Hello students. In this video we are going to take a look at spreadsheets and look at how we enter information into our spreadsheet for the first time. Some of what we're going to explore in this video is the different types of information we can add and how we can format that information. One of the very first things that you're going to want to do with Excel is to put information in, or if you're using another spreadsheet like Google Sheets or something else, whatever spreadsheet you're using, you're going to want to put information in. And before we actually do any calculations in our spreadsheet, we're going to want to format our data in particular ways. So this video is going to explore some of the different ways that we can add our data and some of the different ways that we can format it. Now on the screen you can see here that I am using Microsoft Excel at the top, but I'm also going to go back and forth between Excel and Google Sheets. So here I have a Google Doc going, a Google Sheet. This is a spreadsheet from Google, and as I mentioned in another video, I would be using this primarily and also Excel, so that covers two of the more popular versions out there. I took a look at the initial poll that I took for the very first virtual Intro to Spreadsheet class, and it looked like those that had responded are going to be using these two. So the remainder of my video tutorials are going to feature either Google Sheets, Excel, or both. So let's take a look at entering some information. I know in the first video that you saw on spreadsheets we did enter some information, but we're going to review that one more time. So the first type of information that you may want to add to a spreadsheet is text. And typically, text that we enter that describes other information that we're going to add is what is known as a label. So if we're labeling our information, that text that we add is considered a label. So I'm actually going to start adding some information here, and I'm going to do something similar to what I did the other day. We're going to add, we're going to keep track of some income that we're making. So let's say we have a part-time job and we want to keep track of our income. We can start somewhere in our spreadsheet. The nice thing is it doesn't really matter where you start. You can start wherever you'd like, format it however you want. But right here I'm going to type my title for my spreadsheet, and I'm just going to title it Income Report. You can title it whatever you want. Now you'll notice there that I was able to type that in and it stayed right there in the cell. Sometimes when we enter information, it might be actually a little bit bigger than the cell. So let's say I wanted to edit this. To edit this, all I have to do is either click in this is called a formula bar. Right here in Google Sheets, it's on the formula bar. If I went over to Microsoft Excel and I had typed the same thing in, you'll notice my formula bar is up here. That tells me actually what's in the cell. That will make a little bit more sense later on as we get into formulas. But I can either click in here and start editing, or one of the keyboard shortcuts that works in a lot of spreadsheets is F2. So if I press F2 while I'm on a cell, you can see there that now the cursor is blinking there and I can edit. So if I go back to Google Sheets, if I press F2, then I can edit. So what I might want to do is make this a little bit bigger. Now you'll notice here in Google Sheets, when I entered all that information in, I got this wrapping effect. When I do the same thing in Excel, you'll notice that Excel did not wrap. Excel just continued to overlap the other cells. What Excel is doing here is it's saying, well, there's nothing in these cells over here, so I'm just going to let you kind of run over those cells and we'll display that. But you have to realize that these cells right here, C2 and D2, really don't have anything in them. Really, it's just B2 that has the value in it, and it's just a little bit bigger than the other two columns. I could come up in Excel and click and drag on the border of B and make it bigger if I wanted to, but you'll notice here that it makes the whole column bigger. So you have to decide what you want to do there. A nice little shortcut in Excel or most spreadsheets is if you move your mouse over to the border of the column and you double click, then what will happen is the cell or the column will increase itself to expand and fit everything in that cell. If I try that in Google Sheets, you'll notice I get the same type of action over here. If I double click, it does the same thing. So instead of an overlap, it wraps, and but the same effect occurs. If I double click on it, then it's going to expand so that everything is seen in the cell. The only downside to that is now my column is bigger, and maybe the information I have in this column, I didn't want it to be that big, so I can actually decrease by clicking and dragging if I want, and that makes that go down a little bit. Now, one of the things you can do is you can increase the size by merging a couple cells together. So if I wanted this to appear all the way across, what I could do is merge a couple cells together. That's a feature of a spreadsheet that's beneficial sometimes. Essentially, by merging, what I'm asking the spreadsheet to do is treat all of these cells as one. Now, the option to do that is going to be different in each spreadsheet application that you use. If I'm here in Excel and I want to merge these, there's a couple of ways of getting to that information, but if you take a look at this tool right here, and I'm using a newer version of Excel, I'm not exactly sure what version you'll be using, but basically you're looking for the merge and center option. If you right click, you'll notice I do not have that option here, but it is right on the toolbar. So if I click the merge and center here, then what it's actually going to do is it's going to treat all of these as one. It merged them and it centered them in Excel. Excel does that. If I wanted to left align it, I could just change that. In Google Sheets, you'll notice I have a very different looking toolbar, but that particular tool is right here. I can merge these cells, and you'll notice that it gives me some options. I didn't take a look at those in Excel, but you do have a number of different options. I can merge these cells, and now you can see it's treating them as one. So that keeps my column a little bit smaller and allows me to overlap. But then I can't put anything in C2 or D2. All of these together are merged. So that's one way to deal with that. Now, the other ways you can format your information is by the normal ways that we would typically format things in a Word application or word processing application. We can bold things, we can make them bigger, we can change the font. As you probably have already seen, you can change the color. This is a fill color, also known as a background color, so if you want to change those type of things, you can do all those things. Change the font. I'm using Google Docs here, so my font list is a little bit limited because I haven't added anything in there. If I try and do the same things in Excel, I can. They're just in different places. So here's bold. I can increase the font. Notice now I made it so big that it's actually going past D. So you may want to deal with that. Make that a little smaller. I can change, here's the fill color, here's the paint or the font color. So if I want to change that, I'm not going to keep these the same way in both. So that's a little bright for my liking, but maybe that's just the style you like. I'm not sure. So that's a couple different ways of formatting labels and things of that nature. So this really has nothing to do with the functionality of my spreadsheet, but it is the title of it, and it gives some visual appeal to the spreadsheet itself. All right, so that's a little bit on formatting some text. You can also align things, and we'll see that as we go along. Different things will have different types of alignment, so you can pick your standard right, center, and left alignments if you wish. The same thing is true in Excel. As we already saw, we could have them centered if we wanted them. We also have vertical alignments here as an option. You can even rotate things in many spreadsheets so that they're on a diagonal if you want. I'm not very crazy about that particular style, but I know a number of people that do like that, and so that option is available. Now that's text. Text, for the most part, is fairly simple because there's really only one type of text. There's just text. Now when we deal with numbers, then we get a little tricky because there's different types of numbers, and different types of numbers will be treated differently by Excel, and in many cases Excel will not know what kind of numbers you're dealing with unless you enter them a specific way. And regardless of how you enter them, we can always change their formatting, but as you will quickly see, there are a lot of different types of formatting available for numbers. So we're going to take a look in the next couple minutes at just a quick look at some of the numbers, and in the next video we're going to take a more detailed look at more specific types of numbers and how they can be formatted and what they look like behind the scenes. So we're going to take a look at just some numbers here. I'm going to quickly add some more labels here, and I'm just going to quickly format those. One of the things I like to do is make my labels in white text with a black background. And again, it's up to you. So here's my day and here's my income. I'm going to skip over the days real quick, and we're going to add some income. Now, if I wanted to add some income, it would be most appropriate, and it's always most appropriate when you're dealing with a spreadsheet, to add the values in the formatting that you know they are supposed to end up in. So if I'm dealing with income, the best thing I can do is add the value as currency. Because I'm dealing with money, the best thing I can do for Excel is to tell it that I'm dealing with money. And the way to enter value as money is to use symbols that denote money. And the basic symbol that denotes money to us is the dollar sign. So if I earned $17.50 on this particular day, I could type 17.50. Now when I hit enter, you'll notice Excel took that as a number, and one of the ways I know that it took it as a number is, I don't know if you noticed this, but these labels, when I first entered them, were all left aligned. When I entered a number, it was automatically right aligned. And this goes back to the way accountants would like to have their numbers oriented and aligned. We typically align our values to the right because we want to line up the decimal places. And if we're dealing with money primarily, then we're dealing with two decimal places and then the dot and then the decimal point, and all of those things would be in the right spot. If we were to left align money, it might look a little funny because there could be a varied number of place values. So right alignment is most appropriate. But you'll notice it chopped off the 0. I entered 17.50 and Excel chopped off the 0 and just put 17.5. Not Excel rather, but Google Sheets. If I had done the same thing in Excel, if I type 17.50 and I hit enter, you notice it treats it the same way. That's because it's just treating it as a general number. You notice if I highlight over it in the formula bar, I get 1750. But without a 0. Same thing here. So let's go back to what I said before. The best way to make sure Excel or Google Sheets or any spreadsheet knows the kind of value that I'm dealing with is to enter it as it should be. So if this is a value that is currency, if this is money, then I should enter it as such. Let's try that. I'm going to enter a dollar sign first, then 17.50, and then when I hit enter, you'll notice there's a slight change. Although the sheet took the 0 off, if you look in the background, if you look at what's really entered there, I do have 1750. If I try that with Excel, you notice, kept the 17.5, but actually displayed the $17.50. So different behaviors from different sheets. So numbers tricky, and we're going to take a look at that in more detail later.